Welcome back to our special coverage of the Judge Jumper attempted murder trial. I'm Michael Ayala. We continue to be in Nevada for the trial of Deobra Redden. Now, Redden is charged with trying to kill Judge Mary Kay Holthus when he leapt over the bench, knocking her to the floor and attacking her last January. Now, he was in court that day to be sentenced on a separate battery charge. And earlier this week, he pleaded guilty to 6 of the 7 counts against him in this case, but he's being tried on the remaining attempted murder charge. Michael Lasso, Judge Holthus's law clerk, is now testifying about what happened that day from his point of view. So let's get back inside the courtroom for more of his direct examination.
When you say that he'd kind of gotten up a bit, was he on his knees? Was he still on the ground, flat? What was he doing?
When he had first jumped over, it was such an incredible jump that he had like almost landed on his knees, but like he actually wasn't like fully flat on the ground. It wasn't like he had just laid on top of her. He almost had like a pretty good formation, I guess, of where he was. So like he almost had like a leg out and kind of was able to really be on top of her and kind of prevent anyone from just kind of, he wasn't like he was just dead weight and couldn't lift him up. I mean, he had like a good position on her. And that's why I think also, I mean, it was so hard to lift Mr. Redden off of her. He was just kind of in a good spot and was not letting go, almost just determined at like he was on a mission or something.
While she was on the ground and he was kind of on top of her, or at least had his hands around her neck, shoulder area and had her by the hair, did you see him do anything else to her?
No, I didn't see him really do anything else to her other than, screaming at her and kind of just having his hands like that. That was basically it. I didn't see really any like punches or anything like that.
You indicated that he was extremely strong.
Yes.
Like incredible strength.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What about his physical build?
Oh, he's a big guy, a lot bigger than me, and athletic, very strong, tall, and I've been to that courtroom many times. I don't know anyone that can make that kind of a jump. It was honestly impressive.
Do you have any idea approximately how tall he is?
I believe he's like 6'2", maybe 6'1".
You indicated that at some point you became aware that the correctional officer had jumped in to assist you?
Yes, yeah, so it was about 7 seconds of me wrestling with him before the correctional officer could make his way past that barrier we were talking about, because he was sitting in the witness stand similar to how I am now, and then he had taken about 7 seconds before he could actually cross that barrier, because once you are able to get through that, it's essentially just you and whoever's back there. So at that point, it was me and the judge. And you're blocked off from everyone else in that courtroom. So it took about 7 seconds of me kind of wrestling with Mr. Redden to try to get him up before the correctional officer came in. And actually, until the correctional officer had come, I was unable to actually get him off of her. And thankfully, when the correctional officer came, it took both of us, we were able to finally unlatch him from Judge Holthus.
And when you unlatched him initially, did he stay unlatched?
When we had gotten him up, yeah. I mean, I would say when he was actually up, yes. I remember him because I kind of had him. My arms were almost on his chest area, right below his neck, kind of like right here. And I remember him holding on to my arms, and I remember thinking to myself, I hope he's not going to turn around and attack me. So I remember just trying to get him up. I remember him holding on, fighting, just really trying to get back at the judge. And I remember the correctional officer being right there. And I was actually under the impression, once the correctional officer was there, that there were more officers behind him. I remember seeing a blue suit. I wasn't sure at the time who that individual was, but I just thought, there were actually more people that were right there that were coming to our aid. So when we'd finally gotten him up, I actually had kind of let go. I kind of stopped engaging in the situation because it's not really my place to put my life on the line and try to protect the judge. And at the same time, I also didn't want to get in the way because I'd seen the officers. I'm not really trained, and I didn't want to kind of be somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. So I actually completely almost let up entirely, and at that time.
Okay, and when you let up initially, what did you do? Where did you turn your attention?
Where did Mr. Redden turn his attention?
Where did you turn your attention at that point?
I was watching the situation. I was watching where Judge was also. She was kind of my first priority, but I had kind of just completely let up and just watched the correctional officer there kind of, and was hoping he would be able to contain the individual.
The correctional officer that assisted you, was he armed with a firearm that day?
Yes, he was.
You saw the firearm on his side?
Oh, yeah.
And did you observe that firearm on his side during this interaction?
Yes.
At some point, do things go south again?
Yes, they do. So I'd kind of let up, like I said earlier, and the correctional officer, who is much smaller than Mr. Redden, the correctional officer, and I remember too, I had a blue suit at the time that was right here, so I was under the impression that was another officer, and I'd let up, and then I remember Mr. Redden just going at the correctional officer and just winding back his arm and just landing blows, like really big blows, just boom, boom. And then I realized it was actually Jory in the blue suit right there, and it wasn't another officer. It was one of the DAs who had ran around. So when I had seen that, I'm like, oh my God, this is far from over. So that's when I had no choice, but had to jump back in and try my best to help subdue Mr. Redden.
You indicated you made kind of a fist when you were punching. Was he striking the correctional officer with a closed fist? Oh yeah, absolutely. He was complete. I mean, like I said, real big windups, just huge blows. And I actually remember saying to myself, like, oh my God, I hope he doesn't, grab the gun and maybe start shooting at someone in the courtroom. I don't know what's going to happen. I know the correctional officer's got a loaded gun right there, and now the correctional officer's in distress, and it's just me and a DA here. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, to be honest. And what actions did you take to assist at that point? At that time, I began punching Mr. Redden, try my best to help, and I remember eventually Shane had gotten up, which was our marshal at the time. He had gotten up and ran around, and at that point in time, another DA, Mr. Scow, he had actually gone around, and there was about 5 of us trying to contain him. Okay, so when you say that Shane had gotten up and come around, do you mean he'd gone around that kind of triangular-shaped wall? No, he had gone around the other side where, like, the witness stand would be kind of like right here. Okay, and you said the other DA, Richard Scow, was also back there now assisting? Yes. So it was you, Jory Scarborough, Richard Scow, Shane Marshall, and the corrections officer? That's correct. And ultimately, with the assistance of these 4 other people, are you all able to get him detained or restrained? Yeah. When it about took 5 of us, but once we were able to kind of get him, the correctional officer managed to get up, and with the help of everyone, we were able to, like I said, finally, contain Mr. Redden. And the minute that the correctional officer had gotten up, and I realized that, kind of the situation was handled, then I immediately went to check on Judge. And when you went to go check on Judge, what did you observe about her? Oh, she was frightened. She was in a fetal position right underneath the bench. There's like where my feet are now, there's a similar kind of opening where she sits, and she was literally in a fetal position, shaking, just still frozen, scared for her life, just, almost like this, like just in a full state of just shock. Is it fair to say that even once Mr. Redden had kind of been finally constrained or detained, mm-hmm. he was still lying in the area where you and the judge would? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he was laying there for quite some time. And was that while he was being handcuffed so that he could be relocated? Yes, and I remember a flood of security coming in and marshals and other people coming to help. When you checked on Judge Holthus, did you try to get her to go back into chambers with you? Yes, yeah. Well, I stayed by her side the entire time. I didn't leave her side after that, and I remember her not wanting to go through our normal walkway whatsoever. She was so scared that she actually hopped over where that clerk sits. She actually hopped over that other side because she was so just scared and just, like I said, just it's kind of the state of just shock and emotion that she couldn't bring herself to just walk through that other area. Once Mr. Redden was relocated, was she then able to exit out her normal path? Well, no, she went over, like I said, she went right over where that clerk is, that big wall. She wouldn't walk through that normal path. You also indicated that you became aware of an injury to
Marshal Shane Brandon
Yes.
after things kind of settled down a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I do remember when all the people were kind of trying to detain him, like all 5 of us. I remember looking up at Shane, who was sitting, like I said, or standing almost right here, and I remember seeing his head busted wide open like an onion peel, and his forehead was literally dangling off of his forehead, and I remember. Him saying, "How's the judge? How's the judge? How's everyone?" And him, kind of just worrying about everyone else. And meanwhile, he's got an injury to himself. I'm like worried about us. How are you?
Mr. Redden was not bleeding, though, correct?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I want to show you some photographs on the overhead showing you states 17. Do you recognize this as a photograph of the bench area after the incident?
Yes.
And the disturbance, the papers all over the place, the apparent blood on some of the paperwork.
Oh, yeah.
Is that all the result of Mr. Redden trying to attack Judge Holthus that day?
Absolutely.
Or actually attacking her?
Absolutely.
And the blood that's on the paperwork, is that Marshal Brandon's blood?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Counsel, how many more questions? I'd like to give the jurors.
I'm almost done.
Okay.
Showing you states 18, the area where Judge Holthus was curled up in the fetal position, is that depicted in this photograph?
Yeah, it was would be right there, kind of right underneath
Right
that
here?
monitor. Yes, exactly.
Showing you states 19. Is this the area where you would typically be seated during a counter?
Yep.
And obviously this is after the incident on January 3rd of 2024?
Correct. And the reason why there's so much blood is because that's where our marshal was over, trying to help and assist, like I said, kind of right here. So that's where the witness stand would be, and that's why there's so much blood in that area.
Showing you states 20. Is this the stair leading up to the judge's bench area?
Yes, it is.
And the floor?
Yep.
Just outside? And this disturbance or the papers and the trash can being knocked over, that's all part of the incident, correct?
Correct.
Course indulgence. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and take a break. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 15-minute break during this.
All right, so the court takes a short break after the direct examination of Michael Lasso. Let's bring back in our guest, still with us, federal trial attorney Alexis Rosenberg. Alexis, your thoughts on the testimony of Michael Lasso as he gave his version of the events that day?
Well, I mean, he's very detailed. He's very animated. I think he's giving us a timeline of what happened and kind of a feel of what's going on. I still am not feeling that he is the best witness just because of his presentation, the words he's using. It does seem very detached, and it seems to me that he's almost like he's in a bar telling the story to his friends. We're not really getting the feeling of fear that was really going on in this moment, other than the description of what was going on, with the judge in the fetal position.
It's funny, Alexis, because I thought what came across more than anything was his marveling at the athletic feats of this particular defendant. That seemed to me where he was the most animated. That's a little bit problematic. But anyway, what would you do on cross-examination? They're in a break right now. When they come back, the cross will begin. What might you do with this type of witness on cross?
Well, first of all, I'm kind of surprised that the defense isn't objecting to these very long narratives that I think that aren't responsive to the question. But he needs to really break down and not focus on the fear of the judge, but kind of break down the chaos. Because, I think they have a strong position that a lot of these blows that she may have sustained did not come from the defendant because it was such a chaotic situation. And I think he really needs to go into that about the chaos, because there's a lot of testimony that nobody really remembers what was said and so forth and so on.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And again, just reiterate the fact, no bleeding, no broken bones, no bruising on the neck, all those things helpful to the defense's position. All right, Alexis, stand by. Folks, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we'll get you back inside that courtroom for more testimony, so keep it here on your front row seat to justice.